Support webinar. Today, our topic is Stop the Churn, Fuel the Growth, and we will dive in on winning strategies for subscription brands. My name is Lizzie, Senior Marketing Manager, Peak Support, and I just want to quickly extend a shout out to my esteemed colleagues in the background making this production happen. Ivy and Melanie, thank you. I want to start with the observation that you probably also noticed today that most subscription brands overinvest in customer acquisition while leaking revenue through churn. That's a tragic blind spot to have. The reality is that churn is often driven by gaps in customer experience. And today, that's what we're going to talk about. We will talk about how subscription brands are reducing churn, improving retention, and driving sustainable growth through customer insights and better customer experiences. We are joined by two leaders who have built and scaled subscription businesses while navigating the exact challenges that you may be facing today. So, welcome, Ali and Michelle. And starting with Ali, please go ahead with your self introduction, and then we're going to kick it off.
Hi everyone, I'm Allie. I lead marketing at Wildgrain, and the marketing team at Wildgrain has three sub-teams. There's growth, which is new member acquisition, lifecycle, which is all of our owned communication channels like email and SMS, and then of course member experience. And that is, we partner with Peak Support for that side of things, and how we keep all of our members happy.
Hi. So my name is Michelle and I'm marketing director for Appy Hour. We're still in very early stages, 2 years in, so running very lean internally. Marketing is just all in one bucket. And we are also using Peak Support for customer support as an extension of our team, which is very useful when you are as small and early stage as we are. Yeah, we're about 2 years in now as a business.
Awesome. It's such a pleasure to have you both, Ali and Michelle. And I'm so excited for today's discussion. I want to first focus on reducing churn since that's really what I think everybody who's joining is here for. Reducing churn. Let's start with Appy Hour. Michelle, you grew from 30 subscribers to 11,000. Can you tell us what you learned early on about understanding customer behavior and how it affects retention?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of pressure on marketing to solve for churn with prevention surveys and all these ways you can intercept it. But I like to kind of push back on product. If the experience and the product experience is there, then you're not going to have to, battle that churn as much. And so, especially being in early stages, our focus was a lot in making sure the product was right. So early on, we spoke with customers, understanding what was important to them, what was adding value, what wasn't. An example would be our box is a curated artisan and cheese and charcuterie box. And when we first started, we were selling it as like fresh, quality ingredients. And after speaking to customers, we learned that actually they really cared about the pairings and the tasting. So we almost scrapped the tasting guide because it was a lot of work. And it turned out that that was one of the huge value adds that people were coming to us. So making sure you understand why people want to use your products and that you're delivering on that experience, and finding the right fit so that you don't have as many people looking for that cancel button in the first place.
Awesome. I love that. I also want to hear from Ali. I think that's a lot. It says a lot about how a common mistake that subscription brands may make is assuming that they know, why their customers leave. So I want to hear from Ali, and I understand that Wildgrain has built a lot of extensive feedback systems into customer experience. How does customer feedback influence your decisions in your operations across the business?
So yes, I think one thing that's been unique about Wildgrain from the beginning, and it really came top down from our co-founders, is that the roadmap for product and tech and ops, similar to what Michelle's talking about, like the roadmap is led by the feedback we're getting through member experience. Like member experience has really been the hub of Wildgrain, and then the spokes are all the other teams. And there's been an expectation from the beginning that every team's roadmap is guided by the member experience feedback. And obviously, people want to give feedback in whatever way is most convenient to them in that second. So a lot of it has been just trying to collate all of the places we're getting feedback from, whether it's like the CSAT surveys on a ticket or in social media comments, or through our member account. We have like a feedback feature. So basically collating all those places into becoming tickets within Rich Panel that our team can take action on, and that we can analyze through AI to come up with basically like action items of what about the experience do we need to update based on either positive or negative feedback. Like sometimes we're looking at the positive feedback and saying we need to do more of this, so it's not always just trying to look for the negative.
That makes a lot of sense. You know, I read a research from PwC that says that more than half of customers have stopped buying from a brand because of a bad experience. And I think that just really highlights the importance of actively listening to what customers really want rather than relying on our internal assumptions. And I can see that what we can draw from both of your stories is that companies that build strong feedback loops are often really able to identify churn early or the risks of churn early and adapt faster to what the customer's changing needs are. Um, I want to talk about churn at Wildgrain. I know that Ali, you've reduced churn by 60% since 2020. What were the changes that helped drive that improvement?
Yeah, so a lot of it is that feedback loop you're talking about, Lizzie, where when we started Wildgrain, we put member experience under marketing, which isn't necessarily the typical place for it to go. Like oftentimes a customer support team might be under ops or just completely in its own silo. And it's often seen as a cost center rather than a marketing investment. But by putting it under me and having it in a different place in the P&L, it really gave us the opportunity to see like the money obviously we were spending with peak support to build our team over the years and all of that as an investment and not a cost center. So it's kind of just like um, look like changing philosophically the way you look at it first. And then a lot of it is that hub and spoke model I was talking about where, we have peak support integrated into our Slack channels and in our company-wide weekly stand-up. So basically, they are and our internal member experience leaders are feeding to the rest of the team on a weekly basis, like the key sticking points for members that are happening that week that we need to fix. So it could be like a member account feature. It can be something that happens with like an extreme weather event that we need to like update our processes for the next time that happens. It can be something related to like product packaging where we've either launched a new product and need to adjust the packaging, or something about the way that we were shipping a product is no longer working. So yeah, it really hits across all the teams. And because it then, member experience does sit under marketing, I'm able to feed their feedback back into what we do in growth and in life cycle, and really able to like take member hesitations, concerns, et cetera, and also use that knowledge to address that for the new member acquisition side too. So yeah, that's how it works for us.
That's very interesting. And I'm aware that you do one-on-one outreach to customers as well. Customers who leave negative reviews. Is that
Yeah. So we have kind of we look at member experience in two buckets, proactive and reactive. And I think especially for any subscription brands on here, proactive is really like the key. Like reactive's not going to cut it. And so basically we have a lot of Klaviyo flows in place that our API is triggering to us when boxes are having issues in transit, whether they've gotten returned to the sender, delayed, lost in the carrier system, so that we're triggering emails to members to explain to them what's happening before they even email us. So we're doing things like that. Obviously, with reviews, we're responding to reviews that have actionable items that can be responded to, whether it's a question or a piece of feedback, or even what we call special moments. Our team has been given a lot of freedom to identify what we call a special moment and be able to do something extra for the member. So, for example, if someone writes in and says they have to cancel because their spouse passed away, our peak support team has the freedom to write back and be like, I'm so sorry. Please let me know if you'd like a free box as our condolences, things like that. So, I think once you start thinking of member experience as just not reactive, but also proactive, the doors kind of open for all the possibilities of ways you can get in front of member issues and also like making the experience more special.
I love that. I think what's interesting is that both Appy Hour and Wildgrain are driving at a similar conclusion that where customer feedback isn't merely a support function. It's often a really strong and reliable source of growth and retention insights, and that's how you make all these changes and plan all these strategies. Michelle, I want to talk about what role the customer support team play in customer retention at Appy Hour. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so we also kind of have a all hands on deck with customer support. If there's an issue related to your area, it is immediately communicated so that we can, every respective channel can address it. And one thing I think is worth noting is, especially when you're a smaller business, not waiting for a trend for an issue. Taking any issue that comes in as a small signal. Like if it's not everyone is coming in and reporting things. So if, you know, something is happening to a box once, you can probably assume it's happening at least five more times. And people just aren't telling you. So really taking every issue reported seriously and finding the root cause and fixing it there. But yeah, if you don't have the communication where it's actually going back to that channel leader, then it's just going to keep happening. So both operations and marketing are very hands on deck. Any reship that goes out first gets routed to operations to let them know, hey, it needs to be reshipped. Well, why did that happen? Was it an issue with the delivery service? Sometimes it's just a box is going to get misdelivered, like that happens. But now if it gets misdelivered to in the same area 10 times, okay, like operations now sees this and it's probably something locally where we might have to change the provider for that specific area. So definitely just taking every piece of feedback we get from customer support and investigating it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I guess it cannot be denied that customer experience is really the biggest driver of retention. I referenced research from PwC before, and in that same research, it also said that roughly one third of customers will leave a brand that they love after just one bad experience. So that says a lot, and that explains why both Appy Hour and Wildgrain emphasize proactive support. And I think that in many subscription businesses, the support team is truly not a cost center. It's one of the most powerful retention channels. I cannot underscore that, or I cannot emphasize that even more. So let's talk about saving strategies, though. I know Wildgrain has achieved impressive cancellation save rates, and I want to hear a little more about this. A couple examples. What strategies have been most effective for Wildgrain, Ali?
Yeah, actually, what Michelle was just saying reminded me of, first of all, we take totally the same approach as Appy Hour in that you're not waiting for some large trend or some flood of tickets coming in telling you all the same thing. Like Michelle said, like most people just are never even going to tell you. So, yeah, taking every issue seriously is a big part of it. And in terms of save strategies, again, trying to be proactive before they're even to the point of writing into you saying they want to cancel or going to their member account to try to cancel. And we do have strategies for that. And I can talk about that in a second. But in terms of like trying to prevent the situation from even getting there, we do a lot of proactive things. And again, we give our peak support team members a lot of agency to make decisions. For example, like Michelle was saying, if someone's repeatedly having like a carrier delivery issue, um, even if they write in, even with the second time of an issue with that carrier, our peak support team members are able in the back end to adjust and exclude that carrier for them for the future. Same things with like if someone has their box delivered and the box doesn't arrive cold and then it happens to them again, the peak support team member is able to add like extra gel packs or extra dry ice to all of their future deliveries. And these are all stuff they're able to do on the back end through our API. And so really like customize, like there are some people that just live in zip codes that are very difficult to deliver to. And so being able to, tinker with their settings on an individual basis, we've seen a lot of success with that approach. And then if it is to the point where someone's writing in and they say, I want to cancel, or they're on their member account and they're trying to cancel because they do have a self-serve option, we then basically have a decision tree logic built out on the back end. Depending on what the reason is that they're giving, we're going to be giving them different save offers. So if someone is saying they want to cancel because it's too much food, we're really trying to encourage them to just change their delivery frequency, things like that, versus if someone is saying they need to cancel because their budget has changed, we're trying to offer them a recurring discount. Again, like if someone says it's too much food, it could be a delivery frequency issue, or we could just say, do you want to switch from an 8-item box to a 6 or a 4-item box? So there's a lot of, again, like customization of their experience that you can try to do. And that if someone's trying to do it self-serve on the member account, because that's how most people do go to cancel, we have a UX flow that like has all of that decision tree built in, so that that's working for us without anyone having to be there and trying to catch people when they're not writing in or calling at all, so to let us know.
Awesome. I love how you gave your customers more options rather than trap them into a subscription that doesn't fit their needs anymore. I want to hear from Michelle. Like Michelle, for Happy Hour, what have you learned about save tactics, and cancellation prevention? What have you done on your end?
Sure. So, I guess looking at that cancellation survey, we have something that has been an interesting mindset, is so with what you're willing to offer someone to keep them, thinking about it from a lifetime value standpoint. If you lose that person, you're getting nothing out of them right anymore versus having an aggressive discount. So we've been experimenting. We tested into a for life offer. So instead of $20 off their next box, we're offering, I think right now it's at $15 for life. So our number one cancel reason is budget. And it's a tough one because, you know, we still need to have a profitable product, but we can't make them more money. So it's like, how do we solve, not budget being the main issue. So that is one way. We do offer a for life offer, and that does get decent save rate. And something we have, I don't have results for yet, but that we're launching is a smaller box at a smaller price point. And then we're making it's a mystery box. So that way it's a mutual benefit. We're giving them something that is in their budget, but then from an inventory standpoint, we sell a perishable product. It helps us to be able to customize what cheeses go into the box versus it being customizable for them. And so finding those ways that, we're willing to give up a little bit of margin to one, keep some lifetime value from that customer. But also, to make sure that we're moving our perishable product, it's a win-win on both sides. So excited to see how that does in the works of getting that launched this week.
Wow, that's exciting. I'd like to hear more about that and how that turns out. I think it just consistently shows that, I would have to conclude that customers often leave because a subscription no longer fits their needs. From what you both have shared, that's the main reason. Not because they dislike the brand, but because their needs have changed and the subscription does not fit their needs. And I'm a big fan of the flexible options that you both are offering your customers. I think that's what's notable with both Wildgrain and Appy Hour is that you've both found success by giving your customers more control instead of less control. And I think that that philosophy is becoming increasingly important across subscription brands and subscription commerce. So that's really, really interesting. Um, Now I want to talk about customer acquisition. I know that we've talked about churn quite substantially. I want to talk about your approach on customer acquisition. So I know Wildgrain continues to scale acquisition in this highly competitive subscription market. So Ali, what are your strategies that you're currently implementing in driving growth?
Yeah, so we're very seasonal, and I know we share a similar seasonality with a lot of frozen and perishable food subscriptions, which is Q4 and Q1, really on the new member acquisition and on the existing member side. Q4 and Q1 are the strongest times for us in terms of acquiring new members at a low customer acquisition cost, and for our existing member base, a higher reorder rate. And so, what we've really honed in on over the years is leaning into each end of the spectrum more extremely. So, what we do is we view our customer acquisition costs as a rolling one throughout the whole year, and we have an annual target that we're trying to hit. And it allows us to basically then have very different CAC, customer acquisition cost targets throughout the year that fluctuate but are still going to blend into the annual target that we need. So our it's kind of counterintuitive, but our Q4, even though it's easier to um, onboard new members doing Q4 and Q1, we actually give ourselves a higher CAC target during that time, and then a much lower CAC target during Q2 and Q3. And that's because basically in Q4 and Q1, when macro wise, it's just there's more natural demand to sign up. We want to push that as far as we can. And then in Q2 and Q3 on the acquisition side, we really go into hibernation mode. We turn off most acquisition channels and we kind of run the others at a bare minimum. And we just keep it very quiet, to get as low CACs as we can during those months and leave us more budget and room in our rolling CAC target, basically to take more risks during Q4 and Q1 and try to push that growth as much as possible.
Very interesting. Um, I know that you also did like a protein focused product line. Can you tell us more about that? Like what
Yeah.
merchandising strategies did you do?
Yeah, so we obviously like the original Wild Grain line we launched with, not everyone can enjoy. So over the years, we've added vegan, gluten-free, protein, most recently this year. And then we're in the process of just in general trying to add more fiber to our products because fiber seems to be what's going to come after protein. Um, and so, yeah, all of these diet alternatives basically have helped people, helped conversion rate, but also just helped our existing member base. Like if they had one member of their household that was maybe vegan or following a high protein diet, or they have guests or family members visiting. So it gave our existing members a lot more flexibility on how to make it a good fit for their household. And then um, on the new member acquisition side, really the most successful one so far has been gluten-free. It's about a third of our new members per month now coming in are gluten-free members. And I think because obviously there's celiac disease and then gluten intolerance, it just hits on such a need in the market that we were really filling a void that wasn't there before for that customer base. So yeah, that's been exciting. And so we continue to grow, especially the gluten-free line.
I would be one of those like gluten-free consumers. I love it.
I know. I
Okay.
wish we could get the. I mean, we have obviously so many team members in the Philippines through Peak Support, and we've been able to get product to them throughout the years. Whenever someone comes to the U.S. and they'll bring their product back, but like it would never make it there. Just trying to ship it and get stuck in customs. So I know
Yeah.
that's always the sad part.
I know. That's too bad. Well, but that's great. It's great. I love that that's such a high performing acquisition creative or option, the gluten-free line. That's awesome. I want to now move on and ask Michelle about Appy Hour. I understand that Appy Hour has also grown through experimentation and creative strategies on acquisition. Can you talk to us about the approach or strategy that has worked for you?
Yeah, one thing that resonated with me with what Ali talked about is leading into demand. So in our case, cheese and charcuterie, a lot of people want to gift it. So subscription is our core business, but there's a time of year where someone would much rather just gift a one-time box. If you're buying this for your neighbor, you don't want to have to sign up for a month-to-month subscription in order to give it to them. So we kind of broke the mold of trying to be a subscription-only business and introduced one-time boxes. And in that November, December timeframe, where normally gifting is maybe 5% of our business, I think this year hit up to 25% in December. So, and we do price those boxes much higher than our one-time boxes. So we're kind of able to recover that customer cost from that first order since it is a lower repeat rate than our subscription. So leaning into that allows us to have a really big Q4 when it is a more competitive space because we're leaning into the demand of what's already there. People are looking for cheese and charcuterie gift boxes. There's the Harry and Davids and all that. So kind of looking at time of year and what product to push has helped us grow. Product offering is also something we're experimenting with, which kind of goes back to Churn. Our product is a luxury product. You don't need a cheese and charcuterie spread at all times. So we've been trying to find a way to be more of an essential product. And we experimented with two different offerings, one that focused more on cheeses for cooking or something you need on a regular basis versus snack trays that are more of a meal replacement. And we actually found a lot of success with that early on when we launched that in the last few months. And so now we have a second offering to try and grow an entire another use case. So we have things that people use for date nights, special events, but then a product that someone can use as their daily lunch, which has a different frequency, different customer behavior. So we can kind of capitalize on three pillars now: gifting, product, curated kind of special occasions, and kind of meal and snacking, kind of quick grab and go.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle. I know you talked about product experimentation, but I also know that Appy Hour has really done a great job on what you do on social media and how you promote and how you market your product. Can you tell us more about what you do and what content you use when you advertise and when um, how it helps with your with acquisition as well?
Yeah, so most of our advertising is on Facebook with UGC Creative. We've done a lot of testing on the creator side. I think we've had wins that are both things you'd expect and unexpected as far as the type of creators that work for our account. One example, something that was a surprising result is uh, older men, as a creator work really well for us. And most of our converting audiences is female. So it just kind of goes to show that you don't always need to look for a creator that matches your buyer. So that was kind of unexpected, but kind of goes we have noticed there's a trend with that with expertise. So people are looking for an authority figure when it comes to cheese as a premium product. So if we have a chef or a cheesemonger or someone selling the product, those are also our top converting creators. So we've really just kind of cast a wide net to see what works versus our own internal biases of what we think will work. And then on the creative side, Facebook can be a bit of spaghetti at the wall. I think we can all relate to that. We always make sure to get raw content from our creators, and that's something that's discussed up front. So we can splice it as many ways as we want, especially as a smaller business and trying to maintain creative budget. Every time we want an edit, we can't, afford to go back to the creator, send them a new perishable box, and all of that. And so we get raw content and edit it ourselves. I know a lot of people feel that, let the creator do their thing, they know what works. And I think creators aren't marketers and that they don't always know what works. So we kind of keep more control on the script side with scripted ads. And then, we can test as many hooks as we want, as many visual hooks because we have that raw content. We can text 60 seconds, 30 seconds, however we want to edit it. And now with AI, using AI voiceovers to now get even more life out of that footage, especially when it's an expensive box to ship and you can only get it shot once. Everyone in food, it's like you send the food, once they eat it, you can't get a reshot. So it helps a lot.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Well, I'm learning a lot here right now, but one thing that I can draw from what you both have shared so far on churn and acquisition is I see that one of the biggest takeaways is that customer acquisition and retention cannot be treated separately. The customers you attract determine the customers that you retain. I just also want to encourage our audience, like if you have any questions, I know this is an interesting discussion, please feel free to send in your questions. We have a Q&A box where you can send in your questions. Michelle and Ali will be happy to answer them when our discussion is, I mean, towards the end of our discussion. Now, I want to now move on to other factors that affect acquisition and affect retention. Um, which is like community and customer loyalty, and where does that come from and how is that achieved? So I wanted to talk about how, Michelle, how have you I think you've talked a little bit about the impact of community on retention, and you also mentioned lifetime value. Can you tell us how you're doing this for Happy Hour?
Yeah, I think when we spoke, so it's actually my experience with community is more with the previous company I worked for. We did manage a
Oh,
Facebook
mhm.
group. We're still too small. We haven't invested in that yet for Appy Hour, just from a
Okay.
bandwidth standpoint. But we had a Facebook group, and we did a survey to our customers just 'cause we want to understand, what the value of it was and, to identify who was and who wasn't, because it is through Facebook, so we don't have that exact data. And when we did a comparison between the cohorts of people who self-reported that they were in the group versus not, the LTV for those who were was astronomically higher. It was really impressive, and those people kind of became super fans. We became part of their daily life. They were engaging in there with other people using the product. So it really goes to show that community can be a really strong lever. Um, and especially with food, I mean, people sharing what their favorites were, recipes. The more something gets ingrained into their daily life, the more you're top of mind and they stick around. And so, I mean, that's the hypothesis anyways. But we were able to support that with LTV at my previous company.
I love that. I love that. And I think having a community helps with customer loyalty and engagement. Ali, can you talk a little bit about what you guys do at Wildgrain on community loyalty and LTV, long-term customer value?
Definitely. So, about a year ago is when we launched our Facebook group. So, we were 5 years into Wildgrain, and similar to what Michelle said, it was just a matter of getting to a place where we had bandwidth to help manage the group. So, we set it up. Our Peak Support social media team, which is one of our LOBs through Peak Support, they had the bandwidth to be able to take on this group and monitor the posts and the comments and all of that. So we knew it would be well taken care of. And then our member experience lead, he posts like 1 to 2 kind of conversation starter posts a week, but really it's the engine is from the members and what they're posting. And yeah, I think we're now, I can't remember, over 8,000 members are in the group now. But right from when we launched it last summer, like it just, the size grew very quickly. It was clearly something people were missing in their experience, which was being able to share with other members how they were using their Wildgrain products. They're so much opportunity to share photos and baking tips. And, especially with things like the breads and the pastas, people are often using them within recipes. So there's so much creativity that members can share with each other. And we just saw that right off the bat, people jumped in and just started sharing what they were making and then also asking each other questions. And I think it was like 1 week into the group, someone posted a question about they had been having trouble baking their croissants, like they were always ending up underbaked. Asked the group, what have everyone else done? And within an hour, there were 20 members that had written back with advice of what they had done. And I was like, this is amazing because
Yeah.
they didn't, first of all, they didn't have to email us and ask.
Yeah.
And they're just getting this, advice from all these different members with all these different ovens, because that's a big part of kind of nailing the Wildgrain experience is actually everyone's home oven is calibrated very differently. There's not a uniform way that ovens are calibrated. So that's always like when someone becomes a new member, it's always troubleshooting of them having to wiggle around the instructions a bit to like fit their oven. So now that's something that they can do within the group, which is really nice. And yeah, and then in real life, like physical life, we opened our first bakery coffee shop a few months ago in Somerville, which is where we're headquartered, Somerville,
Oh,
Massachusetts. And yeah, that was the first time then in 6 years that Wildgrain had gone into a physical location and
yeah.
not been pure D2C. So that's been really exciting too, obviously, to build up. Our office is about 10 minutes away from where that coffee shop bakery is. So just to start to build up like a local in-person community has been really nice.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I haven't seen that in photos, but I'll try to take a look.
Yes,
Um,
yes. We
oh,
brought when April and Thea were just visiting and we took them there. So they have lots of
ooh.
photos. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's exciting. That's exciting news. Well, I think I guess it's safe to say, and I can draw a conclusion that success really comes from creating a sense of belonging around products. Like how when people come together and they calibrate on, oh, how are you? What are your tips and tricks? It builds a community of people with shared experiences, users who share the same experience. And from both your stories, we can see that community participation really increases engagement. That becomes difficult for a competitor to replace. I love that. I love that a lot. I see some questions coming in, and I think this is a good moment to take a look at questions and start answering them. We have a lot of questions here. I think we have time for these. So I am going to start with the first question that came in. Ali and Michelle, feel free to both weigh in. I know that you're seeing the questions on your end, but if you don't, let me know. I'll read the first question. It says, hi, creatives are key and they have to be innovative and related to trends. How do you choose how do you choose the agency that you work with for that? And which ones do you work with? Um, Either of you feel free to take that.
Uh,
Michelle, you want to go first?
Go
sure.
ahead.
On the creative side, so we don't work with an agency. We do everything um, in-house. And when I say in-house, I mean we're using Fiverr for creators, shipping out boxes. Scripts are written between um, us, and our Facebook agency does sometimes help with scripts as well. So, a lot of AI is helping a lot lately with getting new scripts, and then finding templates out there of like ads that look good, and doing that research with the Facebook ads library. But right now we're definitely scrappy and doing all creative ourselves. And then our Facebook agency does provide editing. We've also used editors from Upwork to uh, get the finished ad.
Awesome.
And
Thank
then
you,
on the
Michelle.
Wildgrain side, oh, sorry, Lizzie.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Um, on the Wildgrain side, we also made all creative in-house for the first few years and then got to the point where we were just having a hard time keeping up. It's a very time-consuming process. We were actually filming it all out of our co-founder's home, like in their kitchen. And yeah, we couldn't keep up with that anymore. So the way we found the two agencies we work with now was just talking with other D2C brands, especially subscription brands, and seeing who they used. And so we use now an agency called Donut Digital and an agency called First Media.
Awesome. All right. I guess that answered the question. And there's a follow-up question from the same anonymous attendee. Why not have one-time purchases for Wild Grain? That's definitely for you, Ellie.
Oh, yeah. That's actually something we, for a very long time, up until early this year, yeah, we didn't offer one-time boxes on the website. There was only an e-gift card option. And we were just worried about it cannibalizing uh, new members signing up for a subscription. But then actually a few months ago, we launched like a gifts page on the website where people can choose from a few different one-time gift box options. And so far, we haven't seen it have a cannibalization effect. So that's been really nice as another way to meet people's needs. So now there's the subscription, there's the one-time gift boxes, and there's e-gift cards, and they're all available both on the website for non-members and on members' member accounts.
I love it. I love it. Okay, we have another question from our audience. I think we still have time, so let's take this. This is a question from another anonymous attendee. Have you tested on your Insta accounts what format works best? And for Wild Grain, for example, the focus seems to be on products. Is that the result of A/B testing? I mean, both of you can weigh in on this, on the Insta accounts question.
Sure. And I'm not sure if they mean the organic Instagram account or the meta ads, but certainly on the meta ad, really on both. Yeah, we're always looking at the analytics to see what's performing best and just lean into that. So on the organic Instagram post side, definitely a lot of like those posts that are more like product spotlights, like behind the scenes of how we make products. Kitchen tips on how to use our products. Like those were the posts that were performing the best. So that's what we've leaned into and done more and more of. And then on the meta ad side, similar thing, a lot of our ads that focus on the behind the scenes of like how do we make wild grain cookies? How do we make wild grain sourdough? That like behind the scene bakery footage and things like that is what performs best. So yeah, again, we lean into it.
All right. Awesome. I have to answer the question. Thanks, Ali. Michelle, did you have anything to add to this?
We're still not focusing on organic. Our primary focus is on advertising. And we also kind of see a lot of those close-up food shots, like ASMR type things do really well in hooks and stuff, things like that, versus the human element. People like to look at food.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree to that. Awesome. All right. Thank you. Well, we have another anonymous attendee question. This still goes out to the both of you. What advice do you have for CX leaders who don't get the same level of support from leadership? It sounds like you both have a lot of freedom to invest and to experiment. What can other leaders do to get that buy-in from leaders?
That's such a good question. And
Yeah.
yeah, I feel very lucky in the situation I'm in for sure. Yeah, I'm curious what Michelle's answer will be to this too, but I think what I would do if I was in those shoes would be like pick one experiment I wanted to run, something that was probably going to have the lowest financial impact, like cost wise, and run it as an A/B test. We use Klaviyo and Recharge, and there's now ways that we can track cohorts from A/B tests within Klaviyo and Recharge so that we can actually watch how those cohorts perform over time, AOV wise, retention rate wise, reorder rate wise. So I think what I would do is like kind of just by myself pick an experiment I wanted to run with the team, run it. The downside of running retention and member experience A/B tests is that you have to run them for way longer than tests on the acquisition side. So they have to run for months in order to see how cohorts perform. But I would do that, try to come up with some kind of based on the results, business case for why it was net beneficial, and then use that as leverage to say, I'm going to keep running things like this. Michelle, I'm curious what you would do.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I was going to go with it is, leaders tend to respond to numbers, like how is it going to help the business? So figuring out how you can get that data to say, what the business impact and why it's worthwhile, is usually the best way to get leader buy-in.
Good advice. Good advice.
And I found that a like using Claude has been really helpful for me to be able to do cost benefit analysis that I didn't like my analytical skills on their own were not always strong enough to be able to do those kinds of calculations by myself. And now with Claude, like it really opens up being able to get those answers more easily. So yeah, I would lean on that.
100%. It's a lot. We don't have an analyst or anything fancy. And so if, you have access to Claude and you connect all your systems, your Recharge, your Shopify and everything, it kind of opens the door if you don't have that data warehouse with all those touch points to fully understand. And we did start to leverage Klaviyo events more, so adding more custom events to actually understand all the behaviors that are tied to a customer in order to get more insights into what are customers doing before they churn, customers who are like have high lifetime value, like what are they doing? And so we just added a bunch of custom events as well because that can also feed into Claude, so we can start collecting that baseline of customer kind of action insights. I tend to think the in-platform data is a little muddled, so it helps a lot.
Really interesting. Awesome. There are a lot of questions coming in. I think we still have time for a few more. So we have the next question, which is what's one retention tactic that you've tried that didn't work as expected, and what did you learn from it? Do you want to take this first, Michelle?
Sure. I guess what I would say is that, throwing discounts at things doesn't fix the problem.
Yeah.
If someone's unhappy with their experience, or the product isn't the right fit, it doesn't matter how much you give them off, like it doesn't solve their problem. And so really understanding what the issue is, and trying to work from there. And so that's kind of like, we were testing discounting. We only made it so far. Now we're trying an entirely different product offering that might better fit what they need.
Got it. Got it. I love it. Thank you. There is a question here. The next question is for Wildgrain. So, Ali, I'll let you take this. You do a lot of different products, bread, pasta, pizza, and baked goods. How does that work on retention? And is bread the main focus?
Yeah, what's really interesting is there's been a few times when I've surveyed our whole active member base and asked them, what drew them into Wildgrain in the first place? Why do they stay a member? Yeah, like what were the products that caught their eye that made them convert into being a member? And then what keeps them? And very consistently, the answer has been, what drew them to Wildgrain were the sourdough breads and oftentimes like the health benefits of sourdough. And that is aligned with what I was talking about with what works best on our meta ads, which is oftentimes a lot of the like bakery footage and very bread focused ads. And then what ends up like hooking them and keeping them as members are the pastries. So people get really into the pastries, and that's what keeps them being a member. So yeah, I think the different product categories all, play their role in the retention story for sure.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you. Thanks, Ellie. That's very interesting. Um, we are down to three more audience questions, and I think we're gonna have to close the session. So there's one more. There's the next question here is for companies with limited resources, what's the first thing you'd prioritize to better understand why customers are churning? Either of you can take this.
I think kind of
Um,
going off of, oh, sorry, Michelle, like what Michelle and I were both saying now with
Yeah.
Claude, like the simplest thing you can do is export all of your tickets out of whether you use Gorgeous, Zendesk, Rich Panel, export all the tickets out, put them into Claude, and have it analyze the patterns of what people are upset about. And that right there is going to tell you a lot for very little effort or money.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Ideally, you should have a survey set up at that cancellation point as well, if depending on what system you're using, and um, you could, if budget's a concern, there's just even Google form, like asking the question. And if you don't have a way to do it before they churn online, a automated email after they churn, asking them just any way you can get information. And then it doesn't take much to just reach out to a few customers, like 5 different customers, and just talk to them on the phone. Usually you get insights when you have a conversation with someone that you don't get from a survey. And it's really interesting. I'm always really nervous to get on the phone with them, and, they cancel, they might be upset. And in my experience, they're actually just really grateful that you cared enough to ask. And they're actually very nice to talk to.
I love it. I know that you do that. You talk to the customers, Michelle, so that's awesome. All right, a question from Alice from our audience. How does the UX flows work? And she says this is super interesting. Thank you, Alice. Uh, Go ahead, feel free to take this. You want to take this, Michelle or Ali?
I don't know if this is in reference to what Ali was describing with their cancellation flow.
Probably,
Could
yeah.
be, yeah.
So I think that would obviously our my software engineer coworkers would do a much better job of explaining how they built that. But basically, we do have our subscription management software is fee charge, but our software engineers built a headless member account basically on top of Recharge's API. So it is a product that we manage ourselves. And although I do know Recharge has an out of the box, what they call cancellation prevention flow, it's a very similar UX flow. But yeah, basically, when someone clicks in their member account, cancel my subscription, it's then going to take them through this decision tree logic of first it's asking, why do you want to cancel? And yeah, if they say like don't want a subscription or too much food or budget has changed, whatever they pick, it's then going to be showing them different options from there of save tactics and offers. So yeah, so I that's kind of my knowledge. Beyond there, I know that they use Cursor to build a lot of our UX now. But besides that, that's my extent of the knowledge of how it's built.
Love it. Beautifully explained. Thank you, Ali. And we have one last question from Charles from our audience. He says, regarding retention, up to how many orders do you consider a customer as VIP or loyal? It might come down to the average amount of orders.
I think that's right. I think one, it depends on what you're trying to do with that information. Are you going to offer them a different level of support? But if you look at where your drop-off points are, you can usually identify, a point where if someone makes it to order 5, they are, X amount more likely to stick around for the long haul. So I do think that's going to be specific to your brand and understanding, what is that pivotal moment where it's like, if I get a customer to here, we're keeping them.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
think for us, again, it was like always just keeping an eye on the retention cohort tables and recharge. And for us, it was okay if we can get a member past box 3. Like they're in a really stable place, and so that for us is kind of our tipping point. Yeah.
I think box three
Awesome.
is kind of where we're kind of shooting for too, is trying to keep people for that length of time minimum.
Yeah. Awesome. Wonderful. Wonderful questions from our audience. And thank you both for answering all of the questions. I think this has been a really interesting discussion. And I think if you're able to, I mean, to conclude this discussion, if you can briefly tell us, like, if there's one, just really to wrap us up, one final question. If there's one lesson that subscription brands should take away from this conversation about retention and growth, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think it would be put your member experience team under marketing, structure-wise.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
from there, a lot of what we've talked about will flow naturally.
good advice.
I feel like it's kind of maybe cliche, but honestly, just listening to your customers. At the end of the day, your product is for them. And if you're not listening to them, then you're just, you know, I feel like sometimes we want to make the product we want to make instead of making the product our customers want to buy. So I would kind of push towards make the product your customers want to buy.
That's beautiful. And so, thank you. Thank you both. And as we wrap up today's conversation, I think one theme has come through very clearly, which is that customer retention is not driven by one single tactic or discount or a save offer. It's the result of hundreds of decisions that make customers really feel understood, feel valued, and supported throughout their journey. And that the brands that win are the ones that put the customer at the center of every decision that they make. So before you leave, everybody, I'd like to encourage you all to think and answer one question, which is, do you truly know why your customers stay and why they leave? And if you're not completely confident in that answer, that's probably the best place to start. The opportunities to reduce churn and unlock growth are often already sitting there inside your customer conversations, in your support tickets, in your reviews, and in your customer feedback. Thank you, Michelle and Ali, for sharing what's working across the subscription space today and for sharing your experiences and insights. And thank you, everybody, for being here and for joining us for another Peak Support webinar. I hope to see you all the next webinar. Have a great Thursday,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank
Those were
you.
such thoughtful questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Wonderful session.